share with you 10 areas you could have a look at when you're supporting weight loss clients. Okay, so some of these we have already touched on, and they will just serve as a bit of a summary, and some are new elements that we could also consider on this journey. Okay, so the first one is too much of a good thing. So it might be that your clients are making really good choices. Their blood sugar levels are balanced, and yeah, they're eating real clean foods and all the good stuff, but they're just having too much of a good thing. You know, they may be eating past satiety. Okay, so what would be important here is to help them to become more in tune with their hunger and their satiety levels, right? And then also be curious and unpack with them why it is that they keep on eating even though they've had enough. And two typical responses I get here is, the first one is they feel like they need to finish their plates. So it's some messaging that they got from their parents, typically, or even that they're giving to their children today, where, you know, I need to finish the food on my plates, otherwise I'm wasting food. And there's hungry children in Africa type of vibes. So then I'm always like, you know, once again, going back to, you know, is this really true? Is the fact that you've been encouraged to eat past satiety somehow helps the children in Africa? I feel like it's exactly the contrary. You know, it's the opposite, the effect that it has, because you're eating more than you need. You know, how does that link up? So really going into that and challenging those types of beliefs. And some people feel it's a waste, you know, but isn't it a waste to put excess food in your body? It's also wasteful it's going to be stored as fat, or it's just going to get out of the body in a day or two, you know, so it's also wasteful. So rather put it in a little tupper bucky and go give it to someone on the street, right? Or eat it tomorrow. There are different ways to deal with that. And then the second response I typically get here is that it just tastes so good. You know, I just can't stop because it's just so lovely, right? But there, once again, you can come in and challenge that way of thinking. Why does it mean that if something tastes good, that you have to have it in one go? Why don't have it a little bit tomorrow again, or this afternoon, or, you know? And often that's where that diet mindset comes in. I have to eat everything now on Sunday. I'm going to have to clear the whole brownie pan tonight because Monday I'm starting with my diet, right? So often that's what encourages I need to finish all of it now. But that's not the way of eating that we recommend. You know, it's a lifestyle. So they can eat a block of chocolate today and again tomorrow and again the day after if they need, you know, if they want it. So we don't have to ever overdo it if the mindset is challenged once again there. Okay, the next one is nutritional imbalances. So this is where we're coming back to, you know, balancing the physiology once again. And you'll often see that, you know, in many cases, clients with ill health or that's maybe overweight, that they're overfed, but they're undernourished, right? So they eat too many calories, but not enough nutrients. And we know that when we're undernourished, we're not getting enough nutrients into our bodies, we tend to crave more food and eat more food because the body will keep on asking you for food because it's not getting the nutrients that it needs. So it's going to keep on feeling hungry all the time. And you're just getting all these empty calories and it's not really satisfying you in any way. So it could be that your client is nutritionally starved. So they will keep on feeling hungry. So this is where the quality of the food that we're having really matters. And also the variety of the different nutrients that we're getting into our diet also matters. So making sure that they're getting the nutrients their body needs to be fueled properly. So it could just be that they need to add some fresh veg each with once a day, maybe. And even if they don't like cooking or preparing food, just a handful of cherry tomatoes or some cucumber slices or, you know, something like that, just to get some variety into the diet. Okay, the next one is the gut microbiome. So I've mentioned this a bit earlier, but we know that the gut microbiome is hugely important in regulating metabolism and weight. And for those of you who don't know, the gut microbiome is the bacteria. It's the bacteria that lives within all of us. And it's basically the whole ecosystem of bugs, basically, that live in our gut, but also in the body. right? And we know that the quality of your microbiome determines the quality of your health and your weight. And there's a lot of interesting research about this, but I just want to share two of the main, findings around this topic. Is, one study was that they did, they transported the poop of a fat mouse into a skinny mouse. Some of you might have seen this. And then the skinny mouse gained weight without changing at all how they ate. Okay, so this means that the bacteria influences whether you're gaining weight and not what's going into your mouth, right? In that case. And they even transplanted, another study that I want to share is they transplanted poop from a healthy person into a diabetic person. And in that case, or in that research study, they, in most cases, they were able to even reverse diabetes, which is fascinating, right? And that was done through a fecal transplant, in other ways, right? Or in other words. Okay, so this makes a lot of sense because there's good and bad bacteria in the gut, right? It's like, it depends on which colony you're going to feed, which one is going to rule your life, right? And if there's a lot of bad bacteria in your gut, it's going to ask for sugar all the time. It's going to ask for the foods that will feed it, the processed foods, the sugars, those types of things. And what I've seen so often is if there's a lot of bad bacteria in the gut, they don't like the good bacteria in there. So foods that are healthy, that contains good bacteria, it tastes horrible. They can't get it into their mouths, right? So I've seen a lot of examples on this with kids specifically. So kids with unhealthy gut bacteria, they will often also be very picky eaters. So their moms tell me that, they only eat chocolate, yogurt, spaghetti, and cupcakes. That's it. I can't get anything else into their bodies. And I've seen it. I've seen an example of a kid where we're trying to give him something kind of more healthy, and he literally gags. I've seen this, and they really find it revolting. And that makes a lot of sense because the bacteria is asking for the type of food that will feed it. And this is something that we need to change gradually. So in some cases, I've told parents that, we need to change the food that they're eating gradually so they can get more good bacteria in there. So the kid will also develop an affinity for these types of food. Otherwise, it's kind of a difficult thing to break, right? And the bad news here is that most of us have a pretty bad microbiome. Because we live in a microbiome busting environment with C-sections, with lack of breastfeeding, with overprescribed antibiotics, with steroids, with acid blocking medications, with birth control pills. All of these things have an impact on our good bacteria. So taking care of your gut health and helping your client to take care of their gut health might be a very important step to take when they're trying to lose weight. Okay, the next one is hormones, so hormonal issues. So, of course, insulin is related to blood sugar balance, thyroid health, stress hormones, sex hormones, because if our hormones go out of whack, they can cause weight gain. We know that. And if you are having a lot of estrogens, you are going to gain more weight. Because if you think about it, that is basically how they make cows gain weight before they slaughter them. They give them estrogens, right? So all the xenoestrogens, the foreign estrogens we find in plastics and some foods and water, they are going to impact our health and our hormones. So we need to make sure that we're not exposed to many of these sources. And then also remember that when we're stressed, we will be releasing more cortisol, and cortisol also spikes blood sugar levels. So that could also result in us eating more, gaining belly fat, losing muscle mass. So it's kind of a recipe for disaster as well. And then the fifth one, this one is quite interesting. So we know that weight is contagious. And it's been shown that our social networks are more important than our genetic networks. So if our friends are overweight, you're actually more likely to be overweight compared to if your parents are overweight, right? And Our behavior is determined in many cases by our social networks. And of course, we all want to be included. We all want to belong. We want to connect. But the facts are that if you've got friends that are overweight, you're 171% more likely to be overweight. What an intense statistic, right? Compared to if your siblings or your parents are overweight, you're only 40% more likely to be overweight yourself. Quite interesting, right? So the good news is that just as obesity is contagious, so is health. Okay, so helping your client to maybe find networks or others that are on similar journeys might be key.